Good evening, everyone. So I guess most of you have made it. I hope you did not have any problem finding the Zoom ID, the Zoom password, and logging in. Before we get started, I'll just give you a few reminders to make sure that for the next sessions that everything can go as smoothly as possible. All right. Could I just ask you guys for the upcoming meetings, can you try to log in sufficiently in advance? Because what happens is that every time one of you joins the meeting and is in the waiting room, what I have to do is to have a look at the list of people who have signed up for the event. And of course, I can't really interrupt the session or whatever I am explained to do that if you join a bit late. So I hope that you can join, let's say 10 minutes before the event starts, so I can quietly make sure that everybody in the waiting list can be admitted into the meeting. So I guess now you know how this works, you know how to join the meeting. So 15 minutes before the event starts, you can go to the Econ Mentor website and you will have access to the Zoom ID as well as the Zoom password. There is also a link on which you can click and that should directly bring you into the meeting without having to copy the ID and the password. And yeah, here we are for this very first session on economic efficiency. Last thing that I have to say before we start is about the payment of the registration fee, because I've had some problems with some of you, and it's okay because it's the first time, so you still need some time to learn how this works, how the system works. But I've had some problems with some of you who paid the registration fee, but who did not send the identification code. On the confirmation page, you will see your ID code and you need to copy it when you send the payment. So I know who sends the payment. So that's quite important if you want me to confirm your registration. And at the bottom of the page, after you have sent the payment, there is a checkbox that you need to check that basically says, I have sent the payment. And then you need to click on confirm. If you forget to do that, I will not see that you have attempted to register. So make sure for the next time you wish to register for an event, a workshop, make sure that you copy your identification code on WeChat. Most of you pay on WeChat. And make sure that you click on the confirm button at the bottom of the page. And then this is going to make my life easier, okay? And you will be sure that you are signed up for the next events. All right, okay. I think we are ready to start. And finally, last thing that I forgot to say is that when you join the meeting, make sure that the Zoom name that you display matches the name that is on the website, because as you can imagine, if what I have to do is to make sure that everybody who's in the meeting has registered, so I need to compare. So if you have a different name on Zoom, then I can't do that. And again, this is going to make it a bit complicated for us to be able to start on time. Okay, again, this is the very first meeting, so I understand that this is new to everyone, so probably next time is going to be a bit smoother. All right, I think we are ready to get started, so let me share my screen. I'm going to start, you know what, actually I'm going to start by introducing the resources briefly, the resources that I have designed for this particular workshop tonight, and then we'll start with the PPT. All right, I'm going to share this. Okay. So you should have access to these documents. So you just click on resources over there, and you scroll down and you find week 1 efficiency. And these are all the resources that I'm going to use today. I have added the doc file and the PDF file. So the PDF file is if you want to print it directly, and the doc file is if you want to edit it, okay, which might be more convenient for you if you want to make some modifications. So I'll start with okay, concept cards. So these are this is a document that is actually quite useful to review. I'll show you how this works. There is a list of definitions with all the definitions of the keywords about economic efficiency that's useful for your students to review. There is a document which actually I did not put together myself. It's another economics teacher in China. His name is Cannon. Maybe some of you know him. And he has compiled essay questions organized by topic, which is very useful. There is a lesson plan. This is not something that I do all the time, and this is not something that I will do for every single workshop, but I have designed a lesson plan for economic efficiency simply because this is a workshop that I have already delivered for Cambridge last year. A mind map, again, something that can be quite useful to summarize information. The slides, the PPTs, but the student version, which you can print directly without all the repeating slides about diagrams. A summary, so this is something new that I am creating this year, and that's probably going to help the students very much. Just the key ideas about economic efficiency, because the PPTs are very detailed, and students might not be able to, well, they might not have sufficient time to go through the entire PPT for when reviewing for the exams. So the summary might actually be pretty good. And the teacher version of the PPT with the, you know, with the answers to the questions and with the repeating slides to build up diagrams one step after the other. All right. Okay. So these are the documents that we are going to use today. We have about 2 hours, and I will make sure that we have enough time at the end of today's workshop to have a Q&A. So if you have any questions about the content, feel free to ask. You may also type some questions or comments, remarks in the chat box. Okay, I will have a look on a regular basis. You don't have to wait until the end, right? If you have some questions, just type your questions, and I will stop to make sure that I can answer. Okay, let's get started. Let's get started with economic efficiency, how to teach it in the best possible way. And actually, let me tell you something about my very first year teaching this course. This was 4 years ago. I moved to China, and I had never taught this course before. I only taught at university, and you know, teaching high school is very different. And I remember that economic efficiency was the very first topic that I taught to my A2 students when I first arrived in China, just 1 week after I arrived in China. And I found it really hard. I found this topic really hard to teach, not because the content itself is really complicated, but simply because if you take several textbooks, if you look at different websites, you will find quite different definitions, different approaches. So sometimes it's a bit confusing because you don't really know what definition to give. At the time, I did not have experience with past papers, you know, so with MCQs or essay questions. So I did not really know how to guide my students as well as possible. But fortunately, after 4 years teaching this course, I took some time, but I finally found a way of approaching economic efficiency that makes sense to me and that seems to make sense to the students. All right, so let's get started. Let's have a look at this PPT. So of course, I'm just going to, I'm not going to go through everything. I'm just going to highlight a few things. So then if you want to use it with your students, you are very welcome to do it. So I usually start with this opening activity, especially because this is likely to be one of your first lessons with your A2 students. So you want to start with something a bit engaging. You don't want to start with dry definitions that can be a bit boring. So I designed this activity that I called Robinson's Dilemma. And you know, it's the story of this guy on desert island. It's not very original, and he has a certain resource which is just his own labor for some time, and he has to choose what to do with it. Okay, so that's about resource allocation. We know that efficiency is about resource allocation, so that's a good example. And here essentially we have to allocate a resource, labor, between two production processes. We can use it to produce fish, or we can use it to produce coconuts. And of course, the objective is to allocate this particular resource in such a way that the satisfaction of this guy, Robinson, is going to be maximized. How do I measure this satisfaction? I just measure it with a number of happy faces. All right, that's just more engaging than numbers. All right. You can actually make them work in groups or individually, doesn't really matter. And well, what information do they need? They need to they just need these two tables to solve the problem. They need information about output. How much time do I need to catch fish? How much time do I need to collect coconuts? So that's essentially the information you need to draw the production possibility curve. Okay, and you need information about the benefit of consumption. Okay, if Robinson hates fish or is allergic to fish, well, of course, he's not going to use his own time, his resource to catch fish. So we need information about the production function, essentially, and about the benefit of consumption. All right, so that's what I give. Okay, I give it, and then what we can do first, we can draw the production possibility curve. Your A2 students, they know what this is. So it's a good way to remind them about this concept. You can ask some of them to give you the definition of what is the PPC, and using the information from the table, they should be able to identify different combinations of fish and coconut. Actually, 6 of them, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay, seven of them. Which represent different allocations of the resources. Okay, G, we use all the time for fish. A, we use all our time for coconuts. And then B, C, D, E, F, we spend some time fishing and some time collecting coconuts. And then you can show them 2 points, I and J. I and H, and say, all right, what happens there? And again, you can use this exercise as a way of reviewing what they have studied in AS. Is you can ask them, can we produce combination I? Can we produce combination H? And of course, the answer is yes, but we have not used all our resources, right? We could produce more. We could produce more fish. We could produce more coconuts. We could produce more of both goods. We could move from I to C, from I to D, for example, from I to E. So clearly, you can have a very intuitive approach, and you can just tell them, think about it. If Robinson wants to maximize his satisfaction, it's just not possible that he would choose the combination I or choose the combination H. It doesn't make sense, right? Because he could use more resources, he could use more hours, we could spend more hours collecting coconuts and catching fish, and then he could increase the output, get more fish, get more coconuts, and with more output, it would have a higher level of satisfaction, right? So, and we have already understood that if we want to achieve efficiency from a productive perspective, that we need to be on the PPC. We need to use all the resources fully and efficiently to produce as much as possible. Okay, it's not possible that we have solved the problem, that we have chosen the combination that maximizes Robinson satisfaction. if we are below the PPC. That's very easy to see. Okay, so first we can see that the optimal combination has to be on the PPC, but then which one, of course, and that's going to lead us to the idea of allocative efficiency. Productive efficiency is just the idea that we should not waste resources. We should use all of them. If we waste resources, we do not produce the maximum output, and therefore we cannot have the maximum satisfaction. But then, of course, and this is represented by the PPC, even if we use all resources, there are several ways we can allocate them. Should I use more time to catch fish or to collect coconuts? And that's really the idea of allocative efficiency, to produce the best combination of coconut and fish. We sometimes call that the output mix, okay? A mix of output. I am displaying the teacher version of the PPT, Steffi. That's the teacher version. So how do we know that? Well, if you only have a PPC, you cannot find which point is allocatively efficient. You know that. We know that all of the points on the PPC are productively efficient, but which one is allocatively efficient? We don't know. We don't know unless we have information about the benefit of consumption, about how much Robinson likes coconuts and how much Robinson likes fish. And guess what? We have that information, right? That's the third column. We have the benefit of fish and we have the benefit of coconuts. So it's not necessary to consider combination I and H. We can only focus on the combinations on the PPC. And what we can do is simply to calculate the total satisfaction that is associated with each combination. Okay, the information in the table enables us calculate this total satisfaction. And then the combination that is allocatively efficient is simply the one that provides the highest satisfaction. That's it, right? So what do? I look at all the combinations on the PPC. Okay, I did not add the letters, but they essentially 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so these are the 7 combinations on the PPC. I give the associated fish and coconut output. Okay, how much we have, how much fish we have caught, how many coconuts we have collected. And then using information from the first table, I can calculate the benefit associated with the consumption of fish, the benefit associated with the consumption of coconuts. And when I add these 2 columns, I get the total benefits. Okay, that's quite easy. I'm not gonna spend too much time on this. You can do it afterwards if you want to check the data, but that's quite easy. And then we have the total benefit that is associated with each of the combinations that lie on the production possibility curve. And which one is allocatively efficient? Well, simply the one that provides the highest satisfaction. And we have it. This combination, 4 hours to catch fish and 2 hours to catch coconuts, is the allocatively efficient allocation of resources. So it is productively efficient because you see that we do not waste resources. Okay, 4 plus 2 is equal to 6 hours, which is exactly what we have. And it is allocatively efficient because it is the one that provides the highest satisfaction. Easy. All right, I see that there is a question in the chat box. I have taught this topic recently, but I don't think it went that well. I think efficiency tends to link quite strongly with a bunch of other topics. My students may ask, why is it that the fish benefit column is the way it is? Are you talking about the fact that if you look at the fish benefit, that it increases but at a decreasing rate? You can mention that this relates to the law of diminishing marginal utility, of course, and you see that this is something that I did on purpose, right? You see that the fish benefit increases but at a decreasing rate. Of course, this is something we're going to see later when we study consumer equilibrium, but you can mention it. You can say, hey, see, the first fish provides a lot of satisfaction, the second one a little bit less, the third one a little bit less, blah, blah, blah. So you can just mention it, but of course, don't spend too much time on it because this is not really what you need to focus on at the moment. But you can mention this law and you can give them the quick intuition. And same thing for coconuts. You see that it increases at a decreasing rate. The law of diminishing marginal utility. And I like this exercise. I actually simplified it because last year if some of you attended the workshop that I gave for Cambridge, I used a similar exercise, but the data was too complicated. So this version is a new version with easier data. So your students can actually quite easily understand how this works. So what's the lesson? You should really start from the very beginning with the basic economic problem, right? So one of the very first AS lesson. What do we try to do when we study economics? We just try to find the best way to allocate resources. That's the basic economic problem. We have competing uses. There are several things that we can do with the resources that we have, and we simply have to find the best possible use in order to achieve the highest satisfaction. And this exercise, the exercise that we have just solved, has taught us two things. First, if we want to find the best possible solution to that problem, then we need to make sure we don't waste resources, okay? And that's the concept of productive efficiency. And we need to make sure that what we produce is essentially the best combination of output. Again, you can take this simple example. If I am allergic to fish, this would be stupid to use resources to catch fish, right? Or if coconut milk makes me sick, same thing. In that case, it's better if I only focus on catching fish. That's the idea of allocative efficiency, right? So you can start from the basic economic problem and say that the best solution to that problem is what we call economic efficiency. The resources are used in the best possible way. And you have the two conditions that the exercise has stressed very clearly: productive efficiency, we don't waste resources, keep it simple. And allocative efficiency, the combination of goods and services that we produce has to be the best. What does it mean the best? The one that provides the highest satisfaction. Okay, that's just an introduction. That's how I start. And in just 10 minutes or 15 minutes, your students will already have a pretty good understanding of what economic efficiency is about. And then we are now ready to go a bit deeper and to try to be a bit more precise about productive efficiency and about allocative efficiency. Okay. It seems like you are using the definition because they actually know it. I use the concepts. Yes, I use the concepts because before I give the definitions, I want them to have the intuition of what economic efficiency is about. And through the exercise, essentially what we've done so far is we've solved this game, and then the slides that you have after the game are essentially the lessons that this game has taught us. The idea that, okay, if you want to use the resources in the best possible way, there are two things that, if you want to solve the basic economic problem, there are two things you got to be you get to achieve: productive efficiency, don't waste resources; allocative efficiency, produce the best possible combination of output. Okay, do you guys have any questions before we move on and before we start digging a bit deeper into productive efficiency? Any questions? Are we good? All good? Okay. All right. So productive efficiency, I like to display some images at the beginning of each part of the PPT. This one obviously is an example of productive inefficiency. To be more precise, it would be an example of cost inefficiency, where you do not combine the resources well. Okay, clearly this poor guy would need a much bigger chainsaw to be able to cut that tree. So that's one aspect we'll see, but one aspect of productive efficiency is to make sure that you combine the resources in the best possible way, that you have the right combination between capital and labor, for example. If you do not give the right tools to your workers, then they are not going to be very productive, of course, and this is what this image is meant to illustrate. So the problem with productive efficiency is that there are two ways you can approach productive efficiency. You can approach productive efficiency from the perspective of the economy overall, or you can approach productive efficiency from the perspective of one individual firm. And even though the idea is pretty much the same, no waste, producing at the lowest cost, but the definitions are different. Okay, so it's important that you remind your students when they want, if they want to define productive efficiency, it's always important to give information or to indicate whether they are talking about productive efficiency in the economy or if they are talking about productive efficiency in a firm. So let's start with the easiest, productive efficiency in an economy. So the definition is quite simple. You can't produce more of one good without producing less of another. That's a very clear-cut definition, and usually they understand it really well. And it's important that you relate it to the PPC, just like we did before, right? On it, it's efficient. Below it, it's inefficient. And of course, above it, it's unattainable. How should you label your PPC diagram? It actually doesn't matter. You could very well use good X, good Y, good A, good B, potatoes, corn. It really doesn't matter. But I usually tell my students to use the most common way of labeling this PPC diagram when we represent an economy, where you put consumer goods on one axis and you put capital goods on the other axis. But again, no big deal if they put something else, but consumer goods, capital goods is the most common way of doing so. And sometimes the students, they hesitate whether they should graph a PPC that is a straight line, so constant cost, constant opportunity cost, or whether they should represent an increasing opportunity cost PPC where the PPC is concave. Again, it doesn't matter. It's usually we represent the PPC as a concave curve because in practice there are increasing opportunity costs, but it's not wrong if they represent the PPC as a straight line. Okay, you can very, very well illustrate PE in an economy with a PPC that is a straight line. And then what you can do with them, again, you can ask them to work in groups. You can just ask them, all right, what can be the cause of productive efficiency in an economy? What can lead to a situation where we are below the PPC? And there are many causes. Most students will identify that this might be a problem of unemployment. So careful with the word unemployment, because most of the time when we hear unemployment, we think of labor, right? We think of workers. But in that context, unemployment applies to all resources, right? To all factors of production. This could be the unemployment of workers. This could be the unemployment of capital, okay? If you have machines that remain idle, if you have buildings that you do not use, this could be unemployment of natural resources. If there are fields that, again, on which you do not grow any crops, it could be anything, right? Any resource that you do not use to its full potential, this could be a cause of productive inefficiency. This could be a problem of, as illustrated by the picture before, where you do not really combine your resources very well. So, for example, you do not give the right tools to your workers, so their productivity is lower than what it could be. It could be that your workers do not work as hard as they can, for example. This is what we sometimes call technical inefficiency. Each worker has a certain level of productivity, but sometimes we do not reach our full potential as workers, right? And if this is the case, if we do not reach our full productive potential, then we will be below the PPC. Okay, so you can discuss that with your students. Perhaps you have other ideas, but I think I have summarized the main ones. Then make sure you illustrate this concept. This is going to be the first diagram that you do with them this year in A2. So make sure that they take good habits when drawing diagrams. Okay, emphasize how important it is to label the axes, to label the curves, to use a ruler. Try to give them very good habits from the very first day, from the very first lesson, because yeah, diagrams are extremely important in economics. Okay, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. You can just use these diagrams to illustrate the definition of productive efficiency. A is inefficient. We could produce more consumer goods, or we could produce more capital goods, or we could produce more of both from A to B, for example. And if you look at point E, you can actually ask them a question that might be a bit tricky. If you look at point E, you can ask them, hey, can I produce more consumer goods? If I start from point E, can I produce more consumer goods? And many of them, they will think, let me try to annotate it. Many of them will just think in this direction, right? Oh, I know, I cannot produce more consumer goods, because if I start from E and I produce more consumer goods, I will be outside of the PBC. And other students will tell you, yeah, you can produce more consumer goods, but you have to produce less capital goods, which is exactly the idea of productive efficiency. You cannot produce more of one good without producing less of another. Okay, so you can move from E to B, you produce more consumer goods, but of course, you have to give up something. You have to give up capital goods. Okay. You can do the same thing from D to B, of course. All right, so that's the definition of productive efficiency in the economy. Quite easy. In a firm, it's different. It's again about producing at the lowest possible cost, not wasting resources. The idea is simply that you will achieve efficiency when you produce at the lowest possible per unit cost, the lowest possible cost, average cost of production. So you should remember that at that stage, students have not yet studied cost curves. Okay, cost curves is something we study a bit later in the next chapter, when we study production in the short run. So if you talk about the average total cost, they might not know what this is, and that's why I used per unit cost. This is perhaps a bit more intuitive. Those students who have taken IGCSE economics, they will probably know what this is, okay? But for if they haven't, then be mindful, they might not know what ATC means. All right, so we should be at the lowest point of the ATC curve. I usually explain briefly what this is for those who have not taken IGCSE. Graph it, and there is not much else to say, honestly, right? About the U shape, because again, some of them might say, hey, but why does it have this shape? It's weird, right? Why does it go down and then why does it go up? You should not talk about that at that stage. Okay, again, this is something that they will understand when we talk about specialization a bit more, and when we talk about the law of diminishing marginal returns. Okay, same thing. This is when we study production in the short run. For now, just tell them, usually economic theory assumes, it's an assumption, that the average total cost curve has a U shape. We will see later, we'll study later why economists believes that this is the case, okay? But for now, just give this U shape and say, okay, we will achieve productive efficiency in a firm if we produce this level of output, QPE, P for productive efficiency, at that average total cost of production. So essentially, if the firm operates at point A, then we achieve productive efficiency inside the firm, inside the organization. Would it be better to put this part after we talk about ATC? No, because we really need to give this definition of productive efficiency in the firm in this chapter. The ATC is not a complicated concept, right? That's just the total cost divided by the quantity. So in 20 seconds, you can just tell them what this is and you move on. Even if they have not yet studied what this is, you just give an example. If we produce 100 cars and our total cost is, I don't know, $1 million, then we say that the average total cost is $10,000. Boom, that's it. They will, I hope they will immediately understand what it's like, right? So I don't think it's necessary to move this part for after you talk about ATC in more detail. Right, then if you look at my my PPT, you have more slides, a lot of more slides where I go even deeper and I talk about technical efficiency and I talk about cost efficiency. You see this slide, this PPT has the one step further star, which means that, how can I put this? It's not necessary for them to know that. It's, of course, it's better if they do, but they will not be specifically tested on technical and cost efficiency in the A2 syllabus. Actually, we do talk about technical efficiency when we study the monopoly, because we talk about X inefficiencies, and X inefficiency is an example of technical inefficiency. Okay, and we do talk about cost efficiency when we study production in the long run. Okay, because in the long run you have to combine your resources in the best possible way, right? Labor and capital are variable. There are several ways you can produce the same level of output. So you have to choose what is the best combination of capital and labor, and this is what we call cost efficiency. Okay, but I'm not going to talk about these today. All these slides about technical and cost efficiency, I'm not going to talk about them because, again, I don't think you should talk about this to your students. I skip this myself. I don't go through that with my students, and actually I don't even print it. I don't print the slides that have the one step further star. I give the electronic version of the PPTs to the students. So if they want to know more about it, then they can. But I think it's, especially at the beginning of the year, try to keep it simple. Okay, and if you start talking about technical and cost efficiency, you are going to make this topic on efficiency a bit too complicated. This might discourage some students. So I really recommend that you overlook this part of the PPT. And again, when you talk about monopoly, then you can go back and you can talk about technical efficiency. And this is what I'm going to do during these workshops. I will talk about technical efficiency when we study the monopoly. And I will talk about cost efficiency when we talk about production in the long run. Okay, but to me, it's too early to talk about this. But you have many examples with diagrams that illustrate it. But again, too early for that. Okay. Good. Any questions about productive efficiency? Do you have any questions about productive efficiency? All clear? All good? Okay. All right. Can anybody guess why I use this picture to illustrate allocative efficiency? Can anybody guess? What's the, well, yeah, what's the idea? Why did I use this drawing? And, you know, I really feel I like to do that at the beginning of each part, because this gives you the opportunity to introduce the concept before you actually start going through the PPTs. You can give them the intuition, and that's usually what I do. I don't go through the PPTs like slide by slide, going through the definitions. Otherwise, it's going to be too boring. I try just to give them the intuition. We talk, we give examples, and then we try to summarize with the PPT. So the PPT is just something that I use to summarize the key ideas. It's self-sustainable eventually, no. The concept of equilibrium, no. It's actually hard to achieve. Well, I don't think it's so hard to produce something like that. Remember, not a penny is wasted. It's about waste. You can see that as waste. Remember that allocative efficiency is about, yeah, it's about resource allocation. allocative efficiency is about using resources to produce the best combination of goods and services, to produce the goods and services that will produce satisfaction. Okay, we consume these goods and we have the highest level of satisfaction. Well, if you use resources, of course, we use plastic here, we probably use electricity, we use labor, we use maybe a factory or things like that. We use a lot of resources to produce this, how do we call, sorry, I forgot the name in English of this, this watering device. Yeah, I forgot it. Watering can, thank you. It's not really useful, right? It's not going to work very well if you want to water something. So of course it has an artistic value, and this watering can was designed by an artist, and he designed many things that are useless from a practical perspective. It has an artistic value but no practical use. But essentially the idea here is, yeah, we should make sure that we should use resources to produce stuff that creates satisfaction, that we can consume, that creates satisfaction. And this watering can is probably not going to be very effective at watering your plants or whatever you want to water. So that's why I included this picture. All right. So allocative efficiency is a tough one to teach, in my opinion. And this is what I explained at the beginning, because you can take different textbooks and you will have very different definitions, different approaches, making it a bit difficult to understand. So to me, the easiest way to define allocative efficiency in a market, okay, because we in A2, we only look at allocative efficiency inside a particular market, okay, is to define it in terms of total surplus, and simply say something like allocative efficiency in a market is achieved when total surplus is maximized. Okay. So then if you look at the AS syllabus, total surplus is not part of the AS syllabus. In AS, they study consumer surplus and they study producer surplus, but your students might not know what total surplus is. Well, that's quite easy because it's just a sum, but a good way to start is to just remind them what is consumer surplus, what is producer surplus. Okay, so you give the definitions, you explain to them how to identify them on a diagram. That's why you have the reminders logo here, just to say, okay, this is not new, this is something you have already studied in AS. And then you can just ask them to draw a competitive market in equilibrium and to identify the consumer surplus and the producer surplus. Okay, just to make sure that they can do it. And that's again the occasion for you to practice diagrams with your students. So I don't know if you have mini whiteboards. If you don't, I strongly advise you to use mini whiteboards, or perhaps just like me, you have desks on which they can write. It's even better. So that's a good way to warm up. Make sure they have good practices, that they can draw proper diagrams, that they apply themselves, and just go around the classroom and check whether the work is fine or not. And essentially, they should get something like that, right? Supply, demand, boom, equilibrium, consumer surplus, producer surplus. Okay, and then you can just tell them, well, guess what? If you add these two areas, consumer surplus and producer surplus, you have total surplus. Wow, very difficult. Okay, so you can give the definitions. What is total surplus? You can actually just stop there. If you want to give more information to really understand what this means, then it's fine, no problem. But essentially, it's okay if you just give the definition. That's pretty intuitive. Okay, you have examples. Again, you have examples. It's a bit too detailed, and that's why the summary that I will show you later can be quite useful. And then same thing, you can identify it graphically. So you can, what you can do, instead of looking at the total surplus at the market equilibrium, we will do it, but you can look at the total surplus at any level of output. So for example, if we only trade Q1, so Q1 is not the equilibrium quantity, right? The equilibrium quantity would be there, but what if we traded Q1? Well, you can ask the students, okay, where is the total surplus? And if they have understood the definition properly, they should tell you, total surplus is this area. That's always the area below the demand curve and above the supply curve. Okay, quite easy. For any price between this one and this one, this would be the total surplus. What if we trade the equilibrium quantity? Same thing. Where is going to be the total surplus? So you can show them. So this, by the way, delta TS positive means total surplus increases. Okay, delta means change, TS total surplus, and a positive change is an increase. Okay, so what I mean here is that every time we produce one more unit, okay, you see we move closer and closer to the equilibrium quantity. Every time we produce one more unit, because the maximum willingness to pay is greater than the minimum willingness to accept, well, the demand price is above the supply price, if you want, then the total surplus will increase for each and every unit traded. And eventually, when we stop there, we stop at the equilibrium quantity, then you see that the maximum willingness to pay is equal to the minimum willingness to accept. Supply is equal to demand. That's the same idea. And therefore, at that point, the change in total surplus is 0. And if we continue, and then you can say, right, what if we traded more? What if we trade, okay, and total surplus is the big triangle. What if we traded more? What would happen? And that's a bit more tricky, but it's very important because we need to understand that in a market, there are two things that can go wrong in a market. First case, under provision, when we do not produce enough, okay, when the quantity traded is too low. For example, when you have positive externalities or merit goods, the quantity is too low. For example, this case, okay, if we are here, okay, we could produce more and increase total surplus. But there is the other case, the case where we produce too much, the case of an over provision that could be caused by a negative externality, by a demerit good, for example. And then we need to convince ourselves, and you need to convince your students that in that case, total surplus will be lower. How do you do that? How do you convince them that total surplus is going to be lower? So same thing, you can start from 0 and say, right, we produce one more unit, it increases total surplus, one more, all good, one more, all good, one more, all good, you continue. Okay, we reach the equilibrium quantity, there is no change in total surplus. What if we continue? If we continue, you see that now the minimum willingness to accept is greater than the maximum willingness to pay. Yes, we'll talk about that in terms of marginal cost and benefit. So essentially, this means that total surplus starts to decrease, okay? And eventually, the total surplus is equal to this big green triangle minus this red or orange triangle, okay? Because this area actually represents a loss or a negative surplus. Why is this negative? Because the supply is above the demand in that case, which means that, again, let me talk about it in terms of marginal cost and benefit, essentially that the marginal cost is greater than the marginal benefit. So if we produce units of a good or service such that it costs more to produce than the benefit of consumption, well, in that case, your total surplus is going to decrease, okay? So again, summary, this would be a situation where we produce less than the equilibrium quantity. Total surplus is just this area. Can it be bigger? Yes. Could be bigger, for example, if we produce the equilibrium quantity. Can it be less than that in another way? Yes. If we produce too much, we will experience this loss in surplus. All right. I talked about the marginal cost. I talked about the marginal benefit, marginal cost of production, marginal benefit of consumption, because your students must realize that the supply curve essentially represents the marginal cost of production, and the demand curve represents the marginal benefit of consumption. So there are several ways you can explain that, but again, I recommend to keep things simple. The easiest way in which you can explain it is just to say that consumers, if we start with demand, let's try to focus on demand first. And if we try to explain why does the demand curve represent the marginal benefit of consumption? Well, simply because if you take any given market price, consumers, they will consume, or buyers, they will consume the good, they will purchase the good up to the point where their marginal benefit of consumption is equal to the price. Why? Because if your marginal benefit of consumption is greater than the price, what does it mean? This means that the benefit that you would receive by consuming one more unit is greater than the price you have to pay for one more unit. Should you buy another unit? Yes, of course. So you should increase your consumption. You should increase your consumption until the price that you have to pay for the good is exactly equal to the marginal benefit of consumption. And you should not go beyond that, because in that case, your net satisfaction would decrease. So at any given market price, the quantity that the consumers are going to purchase is exactly equal to the marginal benefit of consumption. Okay, so that's why the demand curve is equal to the marginal benefit of consumption. And you can do the same thing for businesses. You can start by stating that the supply curve shows the marginal cost of production. Again, why is this the case? Because firms, sellers, they will supply the product as long as the price that they receive, the market price, as long as the market price is higher than their marginal cost of production. Let's say that the market price is $10 and it costs you $5 to produce one more unit. Well, then of course, you should produce and sell one more unit. Okay, you can make a profit. Your producer surplus will increase. You will do that. You will increase your production until the price that you receive from the sale of another unit, the market price, is exactly equal to your marginal cost of production. And then when you look at it, at any given market price, the quantity that firms will be willing and able to sell, which is the definition of the supply curve, is exactly equal to the marginal cost. Okay. All right, so keep it simple. All right, keep it simple. The demand curve, marginal benefit of consumption, the supply curve, that's the marginal cost of production. Keep it simple. Something that you may have noticed is that I do not distinguish between the marginal private benefit or marginal private cost and the marginal social benefit and the marginal social cost. You know it's important, right? But we have not yet studied externalities. This is the next topic. So that's why at that stage, I do not distinguish between the private and the social cost or benefit. I will simply, once we have studied externalities, once we have went through this topic, or once I have done that with my students, then I just go back a bit, talking about allocative efficiency to distinguish or to give more information about, are we talking about the private benefit? Are we talking about the social benefit? And so on. But so far, I suggest that you leave it aside. All right, so I have like this diagram that can show why the demand is equal to the marginal benefit. If this is my marginal benefit of consumption, this is the law of diminishing marginal utility. And you can say something like, okay, if the price is 10, how many units am I going to buy? Simple. Should I buy the first unit? Yes, the marginal benefit is greater than the price. Okay, should I buy the second unit? Yes, again, should I buy the third unit? Well, actually, the third unit, I am indifferent, right? Because the marginal benefit is equal to the marginal cost, for me, the price of the product. Should I buy the fourth unit? No, because the price is greater than the marginal benefit. So I should stop buying the product. I should only buy 3 units. So you see, when the price is 10, the quantity demanded is 3. It's given by the marginal benefit. With the same reasoning, when the price is 8, the quantity demanded is 5. Okay, so essentially, boom, you have 2 points on your demand curve. Price 10, quantity demanded 3, price 8, quantity demanded 5. Easy. And I do exactly the same thing with the supply curve. These are new slides. Last year, I did not have these diagrams on my PPTs, but I felt like this really helped my students to understand why the marginal cost is equal to the supply curve and the marginal benefit is equal to the demand curve. Same thing here. If the price is 6, should I produce the first unit? Yes, because I received 6 and it costs me less. Same thing for the second unit. I should stop here at the third unit. I should not produce the fourth unit because it costs me more than what I can get in exchange for it. So when the price is 6, the quantity supplied is 3. And same reasoning, when the price is 10, the quantity supplied is 5. So I have 2 points on my supply curve. And essentially the marginal cost curve is the same as the supply curve. Okay, So once you have all that, you can just tell them, give them a very simple definition. We say that in a market, you should insist that allocative efficiency in A2, we always look at what happens in a market. In a market, allocative efficiency is simply achieved when we produce the quantity that maximizes total surplus. This is the case when the marginal benefit is equal to the marginal cost. Quite easy, keep it simple. Marginal benefit of consumption, which is the demand curve, is equal to the marginal cost of production. In that case, you achieve allocative efficiency. I really don't like the definition in some books. They define allocative efficiency as a situation where the price is equal to the marginal cost. It's too complicated, honestly. And it can be very misleading because the price is not the market price. The price is actually the demand price. Okay, the price at which consumers would demand a particular quantity. Because if it was exactly the market price, then you could not have over provision. This would not be possible to, you could only have under provision, but you would never have over provision. So it's a bit of a problem. So I'd rather just give this simple definition. So marginal cost doesn't change, but instead of saying the price is equal to the marginal cost, to me, it makes way more sense to approach it in terms of the marginal benefit of consumption equals the marginal cost of production. Okay, and then you can give the intuition. Simple. If the MB is greater than MC, well, that means that the willingness to pay is greater than the willingness to accept. So if we produce more, if we allocate more resources to produce more, then we can increase total surplus. Quite simple. So we should produce more. That's the case of an under provision. In this case, we should allocate more resources to produce more. This would increase total surplus. And then you can consider the other way around. What if the marginal benefit of consumption is smaller than the marginal cost of production? How do we interpret this? This means that the maximum willingness to pay is less than the marginal, than the minimum willingness to accept. So in this case, we should allocate fewer, less resources to produce less. This is how we would increase total surplus. So this would be a case of an over provision. And if we want to produce, if we want to increase total surplus, we should produce less. Finally, about allocative efficiency, you can simply, I forgot to mention that if the marginal benefit is different from the marginal cost, then we have a situation that is allocatively inefficient. We either produce too much or not enough, under provision or over provision. And in that case, there is a dead weight loss. Okay, a dead weight loss is just a loss of surplus that exists when a market does not produce the right quantity. But if you achieve allocative efficiency, there is no dead weight loss. Okay, simple. I will skip this because it's not very important. I love these diagrams. To me, you should definitely show that to your students. You should definitely show them these two diagrams, one on top of the other. So you start with the supply and demand diagram, and you see that I emphasize that the supply curve measures the marginal cost and the demand curve measures the marginal benefit. We have the equilibrium quantity. At that equilibrium quantity, the marginal benefit is equal to the marginal cost. So we have allocative efficiency, which means that total surplus is maximized. Okay, we can identify it graphically. It's there. It's maximized. Think about it. It's impossible to make it bigger. And then you draw another diagram below the first one. So same thing, quantity on the horizontal axis, but on the vertical axis, you represent the total surplus. What is the shape of the total surplus? Just like that. Okay. At first, if you start from zero, from a quantity of zero, if you increase production, your total surplus will increase. And then once you reach the equilibrium quantity where MB is equal to MC, if you produce more, then total surplus will start to decrease. Okay. So to the left, on the left of Q star, you have an under provision. On the right of Q star, you have an over provision, and at Q star, you have allocative efficiency, and you maximize total surplus. TS star is the maximum value of the total surplus. And of course, because you produce the maximum, you generate the maximum possible level of total surplus. Therefore, there is no dead weight loss. So this is allocative efficiency. Now let's look at the diagrams. If we have an under provision, and if we have an over provision. So if we produce not enough or too much, to see what happens. So this is what would happen if we produce not enough, if we don't produce enough. So same thing, the equilibrium quantity is Q star. This is where we should be to achieve allocative efficiency. What if we only produce Q1? Well, your students by now, they should be able to identify the total surplus. Okay, it's there. We clearly see that it's smaller than before. At that level of output, you see that MB is greater than MC. Okay, so that's clearly a problem of under provision. We should produce more to increase total surplus. And there is a dead weight loss. So this yellow triangle, the dead weight loss, is essentially the total surplus that we lost, that we are missing, that we do not generate simply because the level of production is not high enough. And same thing, you can show what happens on the diagram below. So the total surplus has the exact same shape. It is maximized at Q star. Okay, that's the maximum possible value of your total surplus. But unfortunately, we are at Q1. And at Q1, the value of the total surplus is just TS1, which is lower. What is the difference? The dead weight loss. Okay, that's the, well, the difference between the maximum value for the total surplus and the total surplus that you currently have at this level of production. So you see that you can, these two diagrams, I think they go very well together because they can both illustrate allocative inefficiency. And finally, so this is the case of an under provision, and I can have a look and I can increase total surplus by producing more. And I can have a look at the case of an over provision, same idea. So here I produce Q2, which is too much. So total surplus is A minus B. Okay. At Q2, the marginal cost is greater than the marginal benefit. So I should produce less, okay, an over provision. And because I produce too much, the total surplus that I have, TS2, is less than the maximum surplus that I could have generated, TS star. And again, the difference is the dead weight loss that occurs in this market. What should I do to increase total surplus? I should move in this direction. I should produce less. So these three pairs of diagrams, to me, they are very, very important, and they summarize everything there is to know about allocative efficiency or allocative inefficiency in the market. And I strongly advise the students to use this, well, it's not really side by side, I don't know, when it's vertically like that, like this top and down, top and bottom diagrams in their essays. If they want to write an essay about efficiency, I strongly advise them to use the first one, especially if they want to show allocative efficiency, because they know how to illustrate productive efficiency, but sometimes they don't know how to illustrate allocative efficiency. Well, I feel like for an essay, this is perfect. This would be the best possible illustration of this concept. Okay, and I think we are done with allocative efficiency, because the rest, again, you see the one step further star. So it's like additional content. I will let you have a look at it if you are interested. But again, this is something that I do not print for the students, and this is not something that I cover in class with them. So please have a look at these exercises as this extra material. And if you have any question about it, then just send me a message and I will be happy to help you. Okay, that was a bit tough, right, on allocative efficiency. The rest is going to be much easier. We only have to talk about static and dynamic efficiency, and we need to talk about Pareto optimality, which is quite simple. But before we move on, do you have any questions about allocative efficiency, how to approach it? Please let me know if there is any question. Or should we move on? Please let me know. No questions? All good? Okay. Well, you'll see, I realized that everything that I explained about allocative efficiency might be a bit tricky. It's just very detailed. All right. I wanted to explain it in a precise way that makes sense, but you will see in the summary that I will share with you. Actually, you already have it on the website. Um, I really insist that they don't need to know much about allocative efficiency, the definition, how to illustrate it, and that's it. But if you want to give them a more precise intuition, so they have a deeper understanding, then you can follow the advices and definitions and content that I introduced. All right, same question. Why do you think that I use this picture to illustrate static versus dynamic efficiency? What's the idea here? Static versus dynamic efficiency. Why did I use this picture of a poor little boy eating broccoli? What's the idea? Ah, yes, absolutely. Short-term pain for long-term gain. Yes, it's a trade-off between the cost or the lost benefit in the short run and the benefit in the long run. Absolutely. Yeah, and you know, they are. I'm sure our students, they can really understand that. Many of them probably have parents that pay close attention to their diet. Well, hopefully. So they might really understand the idea that perhaps this poor boy, if he was given the choice, he would probably eat something else, right? Don't you think? He would probably eat something else, maybe more tasty, but also something that would be like junk food that would create some long-term health issues. So the idea here is that, yes, when we talk about efficiency, so far we have talked about productive efficiency, we've talked about allocative efficiency, but we've never really talked about time. We have only looked at whether or not resources are allocated in the best possible way at a given point in time, or in the short run, if you want. Okay. We have not considered what would be the long-term consequences or the long-term implications of these resource allocation. And that's really the idea of dynamic efficiency. The dynamic efficiency, we really look at whether or not resources are allocated in the best possible way over a given period of time, and usually over a longer period of time. And you can start by asking them to give examples from their daily life. Okay, again, before you start with the PPTs, pause for a second and ask them, do you have other examples from your daily life, from what you experienced, where you do something today and you don't really like it, but you do it because you know it's going to be good in the long run. And well, many of them, they will just tell, yeah, coming to school, coming to school, yeah. And it's actually a good example. Well, they actually don't get to choose, right? They don't get to choose because they are children and they have to be there. But then I ask them, right, if you had the choice, yeah, if you had the choice, and if you knew that unfortunately you are not going to be there tomorrow, today is the last day of your life. Sorry for the bad news, but would you be at school? Do you think you would be at school if today was the last day of your life? And many of them will just tell you, well, probably not. No, I would do something else. I would see my friends, my family, I would play video games, whatever. But if you knew that instead you're not gonna die, you're gonna live a long and healthy life, does it make more sense to be here? And then, oh yeah, it makes more sense, because even if I don't really like it today, then I learned something, I increase my stock of human capital, and then I can get a better job, I can have a better understanding of the world. There are a lot of long-term benefits that I don't really see yet. Okay, they are too far away from the present, but I know they are there. Some students will tell you, okay, going to the gym, well, same thing. Going to the gym, well, it's painful, right? It's a short-term pain when you lift some weights, when you run, when you do whatever form of exercise, it's a bit painful. So in the short run, it's not a very good decision to go to the gym, right? Because it's mostly pain. No pain, no gain, right? You know that. But again, from a longer term perspective, it is actually a pretty good decision because you will be healthy, you will feel more confident, and so on. Let me think about what other examples students use. But I like these three: school, diets, the gym. Do you use any other examples with your students, or do you have perhaps other examples that you would like to share where we do something today we don't like very much, but it's actually good in the long run. So there is a trade-off between the cost today and the benefit tomorrow. If you have other examples, feel free to share them. And there is a term that you should use with your students, but they probably already know this term because we in AS, they have learned about merit and demerit goods. And in the case of merit and demerit goods, there is this problem of consumers not being fully aware of the long-term benefits or costs of something. Okay, in the case of the merit good, they do not see the long-term benefits, and in the case of the demerit goods, they do not see the long-term costs. So you can relate to this concept of merit and demerit goods, and you can use the keyword when saying that economic agents, individuals, are often myopic. Okay, myopic, just like when you do not see very well when things are a bit blurry, especially things that are far away from you. And that's the same idea. Economic agents are often myopic in the sense that they do not attach sufficient importance to the future. We sometimes call that short-termism. When you care a lot about the present and about the short-term cost and benefit, but everything that happens in 20, 30 years from now, you just don't give it, you don't attach sufficient value to these costs and benefit. And that's really the key idea of between static and dynamic efficiency. Dynamic efficiency would be a situation where you have a long-term view of the consequences of your actions. And static efficiency would be a situation where you only care about what happens in the short run, essentially. Okay, so once you have this introduction, you can start with your students. Okay, so static at one point in time, dynamic over a given period of time. So static efficiency at a given point in time, dynamic efficiency over a given period of time. This is the proper way of defining these concepts. You can simplify, okay? And if you want to avoid at one point in time over a period of time, it's okay to say efficiency in the short run, efficiency in the long run. Okay, that works. And emphasize that when we talked about productive and allocative efficiency, there was no time dimension. So of course, we were looking at static concepts of efficiency. And as the picture illustrates, these two concepts, they are often in conflict. What is efficient in the short run is likely to be inefficient in the long run. And what is efficient in the long run is likely to be inefficient in the short run. So there is often a trade-off or conflict between the two concepts. And then I use examples. I use the example of crop rotation, and same thing. This is something that you can do this exercise with your students. You can tell them what we call crop rotation. I copied the definition from Wikipedia. If you have economics students who also study biology, they probably know what we call crop rotation, which is a very good example of the trade-off between static and dynamic efficiency. Well, I'm not going to spend too much time on it. You can have a look at the answers right there, but that's actually my favorite example of that, well, to me, best illustrates the trade-off between static and dynamic efficiency. I also use the concept of sustainable development. To me, that's a very clear example where, for example, we sacrifice growth today for the future generations, okay, to protect natural resources for the future generations. So again, that's a very clear example of the trade-off between static and dynamic efficiency. So same thing, just ask the student to say, okay, what's good about sustainable development? What's the benefit? However, there is a cost. What is the cost of sustainable development? In the student version of the PPT, you don't have the answers, okay? So you can actually print it and let students work together and just try to identify as many benefits and costs as possible. All right, but okay. So far I gave pretty broad definitions of static versus dynamic efficiency. But now let's try to be a bit more practical, okay? Because they take the A2, the Cambridge A2 course, and they need to succeed in the examination. And it appears that from the perspective of Cambridge, when they talk and when we talk about dynamic efficiency, we mostly talk about innovation, research and development, technological change. And of course, this is something that is relevant to the concept or the concept of dynamic efficiency. But to me, this is just one example. Okay, but for Cambridge, it seems like this is something that students should focus on. So if they write an essay about efficiency and they want to talk about dynamic efficiency, they should definitely talk about that. Most of the time, students forget about that. They talk about allocative efficiency, productive efficiency, but they forget to talk about dynamic efficiency. So that's a mistake. If they talk about dynamic efficiency, they should definitely use examples from innovation, the state of technology, and so on. So yes, because we consider, when we talk about dynamic efficiency, we consider a longer period of time, then of course the state of technology, the state of knowledge and technology changes. It changes not on its own, but it changes because businesses, governments, they invest a lot of money into a process that we call research and development. Okay, it's a process through which we achieve innovation. And through that process, they they create new knowledge that they use to introduce innovations. Could be a process or a product innovation. These are the two main types of innovation. So the process innovation is something that improves the production process, and a product innovation is simply a product that has a better features, or more features, or better quality, or things like that. And from the perspective of Cambridge, and again, this is something that you need to emphasize so your students know how to score during the exam. When we say in this course that a firm, for example, especially a firm, is dynamically inefficient, it usually means that it does not invest in research and development. It does not innovate enough. Why? Simply because innovation is something that takes a long time, right? Usually it takes about 10 years. For example, in the pharmaceutical industry, it takes 10 years to introduce an innovation. So if you are a business and if you focus on the short term, if you do not really care about what happens in the long run, well, are you going to spend a lot of money? Are you going to invest millions, hundreds of millions of dollars into research and development for something that is only going to generate benefits in 10 years from now? No, you are not going to invest, and instead you are going to focus on projects, and you're going to invest in projects that can create benefit in a few months or in a few years, in a couple of years at most, okay? We sometimes say that the firms, they overly discount the future. Discount the future means to attach less importance to the future. So if you discount the future too much, this means that you just do not care a lot about the future, okay? So in that case, the firms, they see, no, I'm not going to invest in research and development. It's going to cost me a lot of money today, and it's only going to generate benefits in many years. So if I'm interested in the short run, I am not going to innovate. And from the perspective of Cambridge, we will call that dynamic inefficiency. Okay, same thing. There is another one step further slide. I'm not going to talk about this. Please have a look at it and talk to me if I can help. And the last one, I talk about patents. What is a patent? And that's the best example of dynamic efficiency and innovation. Patents are very good because they stimulate innovation, right? They give incentives to innovate. So this is something that increase dynamic efficiency. And honestly, if your students want to write an essay about efficiency, that's a very good example. Let me explain why. Because they can say, all right, patents, they give incentives to innovate. So they improve dynamic efficiency, okay? But a patent also gives a market power, okay? Because if you are a business, you innovate, you receive a patent, then you become a monopolist, okay? And what do we know about monopolists? We know that this leads to allocative efficiency. This is a market failure. And we also know that monopolists are likely to be productively inefficient. So think about it. And that's why I really love this example of patent. This means that patents, they can improve dynamic efficiency, but they will deteriorate, worsen allocative and productive efficiency once the patent has been awarded. So that's a very interesting example of how you can have a trade-off between dynamic efficiency and static efficiency, especially allocative and productive efficiency. So I like this example very much. And yeah, I always advise my students to use it in their essays. Okay, good. Any questions about the trade-off between static and dynamic efficiency before we move on to the last topic, which is quite easy? We'll talk about Pareto optimality. Any questions? None, too easy. All right. I usually start with a quote from, I'm not sure how to pronounce this name, Amartya Sen. I'm not sure about the pronunciation. A society can be Pareto optimal and still perfectly disgusting. I like this quote very much because you know that Pareto optimality is about economic efficiency. It's about the allocation of resources to achieve the maximum total surplus. So that's really efficiency, and still be perfectly disgusting. That's mostly about fairness, about inequalities, for example, but I really understand that as fairness. So what if you rephrase this quote a bit? This tells you you can have efficiency, but you can have you can live in a society where resources are used very efficiently, but in that same society, there can be a very, very high level of inequality. The situation can be super unfair. Which is something, and we'll talk about that later when we will discuss government microeconomic intervention, and we'll see that there is often a trade-off between efficiency and fairness, or inequality if you want, which means that policies that tend to improve efficiency, they tend to increase inequalities, and policies that are aimed at improving fairness or decreasing inequality, they tend to create inefficiencies. So there is often this trade-off between efficiency and equality. And that's one reason for which we have different political parties in most countries, right-wing, left-wing. It's a good way of summarizing this, well, it's of course, I am oversimplifying, but usually right-wing political parties, they tend to favor efficiency over fairness, and left-wing political parties, they tend to favor fairness or equality over efficiency. That's, again, a very simple way of differentiating these two types of political parties, but usually I think it works pretty well. They don't need to know much about Pareto optimality. They need to know the definition, easy. When it's not possible to reallocate the resources so that at least someone is made better off without making anyone else worse off. Okay, definition. If you want, you don't have to, okay? If you want, you can introduce them to the concept of Pareto improvement. So Pareto improvement is when you can actually reallocate the resources that benefit at least someone and you don't hurt anyone. So as long as you have Pareto improvements, then you have not yet achieved Pareto optimality. But if you are in a situation, if you consider a given resource allocation in which there are no further Pareto improvements, well, then in that case, this means that you have achieved Pareto efficiency. But this concept of Pareto improvement is not used by Cambridge. I use it because, to me, it makes sense, and it tends to help my students to understand whether or not a given allocation of the resources is Pareto optimal. But if you feel like this is going to confuse them, then just stick to the definition, and it's going to be enough. So they need to know the definition, and they need to know that if you want to achieve Pareto optimality, you need both productive efficiency and allocative efficiency. Okay, you require these two types of efficiency to achieve Pareto optimality. Well, that's quite intuitive, right? If you do not have productive efficiency, that means that you could produce more output, okay? And you could give this extra output to someone in the economy, for example. So you would make someone better off without making anyone else worse off. So you see that if you were productively inefficient, you could still make a Pareto improvement, which means that you have not yet achieved Pareto optimality. Allocative efficiency. So if you do not have allocative efficiency, this means that you have not maximized total surplus. Think about the total surplus as a big cake, okay? If you are allocatively inefficient, this means that you have not produced the biggest possible cake, okay? So you could produce a bigger cake and give let's say what's more to someone. And same thing, if you increase total surplus, you could give, well, that's to simplify, you could give the additional total surplus to someone. So you would make someone better off without making anyone else worse off. And therefore, this is a Pareto improvement. So your initial situation is not Pareto efficient or Pareto optimal. Okay, that's the intuition that you can give them for them to remember, to understand why you need to have productive and allocative efficiency if you want to achieve Pareto optimality. And then I conclude this topic by this question. If we achieve efficiency, well, can we conclude that the allocation of the resources is fair? And of course not. And this is the purpose of this quote. Efficiency and fairness are two very different things, and usually they are in conflict. You can give examples if you want, but I usually save that for the chapter on government microeconomic intervention. So you can just tell them, well, no, we will see that later. It's possible that resources are used in the best possible way, but the resulting outcome is very unfair, especially very unequal. Okay, and that's it. Okay, any questions about Pareto optimality? This is not yet the Q&A session because I want to show you a few more things before the Q&A session. So for now, do you guys have any questions about Pareto optimality? Please let me know if you do. Questions on Pareto optimality? That's easy, right? That's the easy part. It's always a good idea if they mention it in the essay. They should not spend too much time on it, but they can write 1 sentence, 2 sentences on Pareto optimality just to tell the examiner, hey, look, I know what this is. Okay, let me just show it, compare two things. How should they mention Pareto optimality? Well, it depends. There are several ways. They can do it. To me, the best way would be at the same time when they define economic efficiency. Okay, at the beginning, they can talk about they define economic efficiency, and then they can at the same time or just after define the concept of Pareto optimality, or they can define it follow the same order as the PPT. They can first define economic efficiency. They can look at productive and allocative efficiency, dynamic efficiency, and then as a quick conclusion, to finish their paragraph, they can just briefly define what we call Pareto optimality, just as a way of checking a box. Hey, look, I know what this is, okay? Just to send a quick signal to the examiner. Does CI assume all points on PPC are Pareto efficient? Well, no, of course. Well, and if they do, this is a mistake. All points on the PPC are not Pareto efficient, because if you are on the PPC, you achieve productive efficiency, but you do not necessarily achieve allocative efficiency. If you consider a PPC that is a concave curve, there is one single point on the PPC that is both productively efficient and allocatively efficient. So all points on the PPTs, there will be one that is going to be Pareto optimal, but only one. Other questions about Pareto optimality? Are we good? All right, let me just show you something. So look at how many slides there are in the teacher's version. There are 197. So if you print all that, I'm pretty sure your head of department is going to kill you. So do not print this PPT to the students. Let me share my screen. It's going to make things easier. Okay, you should now see my screen. Instead, what you can do is to print, let me just, sorry, I have not yet opened it. You should print the student's version. So we had 197 and the student's version, so it's still a lot. I'm not saying that this is, but only 49. That's better, right? That's better. And usually I print 2 slides per page. So actually, the PDF is like that. The PDF, you see that you have 2 slides. You have 2 slides on each page. So if you print both sides, it's going to be 13 pages. That's not, well, it's still detailed, but it's not too much. Your head of department or your principal will be much happier if you print this document. Okay, so yeah, if you open the PDF file, it's already like this, so you can just print this right away. Convenient. Let's have a look now at the other documents that I prepared for you. So first, this is a summary. Only 3 pages, and well, you really have everything you need. Your students have everything they need. So economic efficiency. So what I highlighted in blue, these are the definitions. Okay. Well, yellow is just the key IDs, and well, again, I honestly, I don't really know why I use these colors. You also have the doc file, the Word file, so you can edit it. Okay, so you can choose whatever system you want. But I advise you guys to use colors in the summaries. So definitions, one color, key IDs, the conclusions, another color, just to make it easier for students to clearly identify what they must know. What do we have? Okay, so productive efficiency, the 2 diagrams in the economy in one firm, reminders about consumer surplus, producer surplus, total surplus with diagrams as well. Allocative efficiency, so again in the economy, in the market, the deadweight loss, the 2 situation, under provision, over provision. So this is under provision, this is over provision, and this is allocative efficiency. Static versus dynamic efficiency, the definitions, examples, especially about innovation, and then Pareto optimality. So you see, even if you use the student version, it's still 49 slides, but in 3 pages, what your students must know is there. I don't think I overlooked anything important. So that's a very quick way to review. I'm sure your students will enjoy this very much instead of having to look at all the or going through all the PPTs. Then definitions. So I put together this document where I listed all the definitions. So if you want to assign this as a homework, for example, just say, all right, you need to review all the definitions about economic efficiency. Then you have all the definitions. Well, they are organized. I followed the order of the PPT. It's not alphabetical. The definitions can also be found on the online dictionary, Lexicon. So I'm still working on it, but I will add definitions one after the other. So let's say we want to, I don't know, Pareto, oops, optimality, boom, and you have the definition. Okay, could be useful. And at the end of the year, we should have all keywords defined, and I will create games that your students can play on the website to review, to practice definitions, okay, where they have to match definitions and keywords or things like that. I'm not sure yet, but there will be games, online games that they can play to practice definitions. And just like Econ Joker, you will be able to track their performance if you want to assign this type of work. Yeah, but it's going to take some time, okay? Don't expect it to be ready before, I don't know, a few months, and we need more definitions, of course. So you can navigate by letter, you can just type. I try to keep it simple, so the students, they only have like one sentence, so they can use that in their essays. Because if you have definitions that are too long, too detailed, they will not remember the definition, and it's not going to be very useful. So if you see all the definitions that I gave, well, they are pretty concise, okay? Simple, clear, concise. That's my objective. All right. Okay, so that's for these other documents, definitions. Then these concept cards. So what is it? So these concept cards, I print them, and then you can just cut them. What I do is that I put them on my desk, and I ask and I hide the content. Okay, I flip them so the students don't actually see what's written on each card. And I ask each of them to come to the desk one after the other to pick one randomly. And then, well, they simply have to explain in front of the class. Okay, for example, if they pick dead weight loss, they have to give the definition of what this is, allocative efficiency. Sometimes they have to draw a diagram. Okay, for example, to draw the diagram of productive efficiency in a firm. Sometimes they have to give examples to have that. Okay, static versus dynamic efficiency, they have to give an example of this trade-off, the diet, the gym, things like that. And to keep it a bit more engaging and fun, I have added drawing challenges. Okay, so at the end, you have a 1 or 2 drawing challenges. So if they pick that, they have to draw something. I try to pick something that is a bit funny. So in this one, it's a unicorn. Again, just to make it a bit more fun. Yeah, that's it. So it's again, a very, very good way to practice and to review before the exams. Before the exam, you can actually put together all the concept cards, and you can spend 1 or 2 lessons with them just to review the key ideas. This is something that has worked really, really well with my students, and I strongly advise you to do it. Then the lesson plan. So I have a lesson plan. Again, this is not really something that I do simply because to me, my PPT is my lesson plan. Okay. I spent a lot of time thinking about how to organize my PPT in a way that makes sense. So I don't need to make lesson plans. But again, because I delivered a workshop last year for Cambridge, for once I prepared a lesson plan about economic efficiency. So you can have a look at it, but I will not do that for every workshop. Okay, that's just a one-time thing. Okay, have a look at it. Then a mind map that I designed again. So we have a summary, but you can also organize it in this form. Actually, I did it as an example, but then I asked my students to do their own mind maps. Okay, it's better if they do it themselves. So that's just a demo. That's just an example about economic efficiency. If I had to make a mind map myself that fits on 1 page about economic efficiency, how would I do it? And this is what I produced. So you can give this to them as an example and say, all right, for the next topics, that's your job. This is your homework to produce, to create this type of mind map. And okay. Last, is there any other document that I have not opened yet? Yes, I think I have not opened like the one with the essay questions. So again, this document has not been created by me, so I have to give credit to Kannan Narayanasamy. I hope I got it right. So what he did is that he went through the past papers from 2002, pretty old, to most recent ones, 2019. Okay, this is not exactly up to date, but that's great anyway. And what he did is that he identified what essay questions relate to economic efficiency. So of course, most of them, they are about economic efficiency, but not only. You need more knowledge about market failures, government intervention, but still they are listed there. So it could be useful for you to assign homework, so you don't have to go through all past papers looking for an essay question about it. And it's useful for your students when they review a particular topic, they can go through this document and simply just just ask themselves, all right, what if I wanted to answer this essay question? How would I approach it? How would I structure my answer? What content would I include? What definitions would I give? What examples? What diagrams? And so on. So quite useful. And again, this is not a document that I designed. All the credit goes to this teacher of economics. What app do I use to make the mind map? Well, I use PowerPoint. This is the original document. Okay, wow. So because there is probably a more efficient way to do it, which is funny for a mind map about economic efficiency, but I am comfortable using PowerPoint. So, I just figured that I would do it. It's not very complicated, right? I'm very much used to draw diagrams, and then making mind maps was not much more challenging. So I used PowerPoint. Last thing I want to show you, and then we can actually two things. Let's go back. Of course, these PPTs, you can tell your students, you can find them on the website. Okay, just go A2 Economics, it's there. Okay, so they can download the PPT. You can download the teacher version, and they can download the student version. So it's up to date. You just updated it recently, as well as everything else, right? All the other PPTs, they can download from the website, which makes me think that it might not be necessary to print everything for them. You can print the summaries, perhaps. It's really up to you. I think in my class, I think I will print the student version and the summaries, because I like when they can take notes on the PPTs. If you don't print them, they might be unable to take notes. So I still recommend you print the student version, but you see the tables are empty, so they can do the exercises when there are some questions. So for example, for dynamic efficiency, I left it blank so they can actually fill it themselves. So I still recommend you print this student version, but it's up to you. But just keep in mind that they can access the electronic version anytime they want through the website. Okay. Yeah, save the planet, absolutely. Try to be mindful of the quantity of paper that you print. And finally, of course, I hope you use this website. Because you can actually get them to practice questions on any topic, right? So there are 37 MCQs about economic efficiency. You can just view them if you want to have a look at the questions. I'm going to close that. I don't really need it for now. Okay, you have the answers, you have the reference. Sometimes you have the video explanation. I'm still working on this, but for some questions we have the video explanation. And if you have a teacher account, then you can create an assignment. Okay, so for example, you could create an assignment. You want to do homework. Let's say I want to do a homework about efficiency. So it's for A2 Economics. I'm going to give them 45 minutes. It's going to finish next week. All right. And okay, I select the name of my students. I choose a topic. Okay, so efficiency. That's going to be what we work on. Then I can select the questions I want to assign. Okay, so let's say I want to assign just 2 questions because I'm a very kind teacher and I don't give a lot of homework, so just two MCQs. And then there are some options. Do you want to scramble them? How do you want to order them? Let's just say I want to scramble them. I want to hide them. You can choose your grade, a threshold. I want to authorize my students to access their reports next. All right, and then I have an assignment. So when my students will log into the website, they will see the assignment. They will be able to complete it online. Well, ongoing. So that's pretty cool, right? Pretty useful. So yeah, to me, it has saved me so much time, and I could really tell that my students have greatly improved and have obtained higher results. It's difficult to tell what is the cause, but I'm pretty confident that this website has helped. So again, I strongly advise you to use it. Okay. All right, and I think this is it. I think the biggest help for my students would be giving them good advice on how to write high-scoring essays. It would be possible for you to model how to answer a 12 or 25-mark question on efficiency. As you may know, I am planning to organize a face-to-face workshop on essay writing. So we have already chosen a location. This workshop will take place in Hangzhou. And we have also chosen a date. It's going to be on a weekend on October 23rd and October 24th. So we will have the entire weekend to talk about essay writing. I will give examples of model answers, 12 mark, 25 marks of the main 7 or 8 topics that are tested in AS and A2, well, 7 for AS, 7 for A2. That's why I need some time to prepare this workshop. So there will be a face-to-face workshop in Hangzhou in October. So yeah, this is going to happen, but probably not online. And I still need some time to work on this because, as you can imagine, this takes time. Okay, I am done. Now it's time for you to ask me some questions. Do you have any remarks? This is the beginning of the Q&A session. Questions, remarks, feedback, anything I can help you with, please let me know. You can type in the chat box, you can talk to me. It's all good. Please, go ahead. Are you willing to tell us what grades your students received this year? Yes, but it's not going to give you much information because you can be I don't want to say a lousy teacher, but have like great students who are going to be very hardworking. So even if you don't really do a good job as a teacher, they can actually do pretty well. And you can be a very good teacher, but if you are in a poor working environment where students are not disciplined, students do not complete their homework, then you will not have a very good grade. So for A2, I only had 6 students. 2 of them got A stars. And of course, this is also affected by their AS grades, right? So I don't think it's going to help too much to, yeah, I don't know what you are going to do with this information, but I don't mind sharing it. So 2 got A stars, 1 got an A, 2 got Bs, and 1 got a U. These were the scores of my students in A2 this year. Other questions? About efficiency, we have a few minutes left, so if you have any questions, go ahead. I found some 25-mark questions on efficiency are somehow tricky, and my students struggled fully understanding some of them. I actually find the essay questions on efficiency among the easiest ones because it's always the same. I don't know if I still have this document. Let me try to find it. Where is it? I'm trying to find a document that I prepared. Must be no price effect. Yeah, this one. But no, oh no, that's yeah, that's the one. This is actually a like a guide that I made for my students for them to be able to answer any essay question about efficiency, depending on the essay question, of course. You see sometimes only if relevant to the, oh, sorry, I have not shared my screen. Let me share my screen. Okay, yeah. So that's a guide for for A2 students to write essays about economic efficiency. And well, I think it fits any essay question. I'm not going to share it because I still need to improve it and to work on it before the face-to-face workshop in Hangzhou. But that's essentially something, so introduction to efficiency, efficiency in perfect competition, market failures, government intervention, government failure. So these are the main parts that would be relevant to an essay question about efficiency. To me, what is the most difficult in this type of essay is that there is too much to say. And you may not have enough time, or your students may not have enough time to write everything they want if they choose an essay about efficiency. So that's why in this guide, I give some advices and I give word counts. Okay, you should not write more than 250 words on market failures. If you want to choose, I don't know if I wrote it. For example, you see, if you talk about externalities, it's okay to just consider one just to save time, or at least to develop one more or the other. So yeah, I give some tips on how they can write an essay question about efficiency. But this document deserves some improvement, so that's why I have not yet shared. I've done the same for consumer equilibrium and some other essay questions. But yeah, we will have a workshop, at least this face-to-face workshop. And we might have further online workshops, but I cannot guarantee it for now. Yeah, especially, having a word count for efficiency, it's important because the problem I realized is that some students, they spend a lot of time defining efficiency. So they will spend, let's say, 20 minutes defining efficiency, drawing the diagrams, using examples. Then they will spend 20 minutes on market failures. Same thing, definitions, examples, diagrams. And then time's up, right? They don't have time to talk about government intervention. They don't have time to talk about government failure and to write some interesting evaluative comments. So I think it's interesting for them to be able to have a clear idea of, all right, there are many things I know. There are many things I could write about, but I don't have time for everything. So you need to prioritize. What can I skip and what is essential? And this is something that I will do during this essay writing workshop to try to help you better understand what is essential and what can be overlooked or not very much developed, at least. So your students, do not feel guilty if they skip something or if they just mention something without developing it as much as possible. It's really about, again, that's about resource allocation. They have essentially 45 minutes to write an essay. And they have to use this time as well as possible. They have to make sure that they do not spend too much time on something that is not going to get them marks, right? So it takes time, yes, to for them to understand how to best use their time. For 25 mark essay, how much words do you recommend for them to write? I always feel uncomfortable with this type of questions because it really depends. It depends on the essay question. It depends on how many diagrams they can use because it takes time. It takes time to draw a diagram properly. So for 25 mark essays, I don't give them I don't give them this type of advice, because if you start telling them, but first, because they don't count words when they write, right? So I don't think many students actually count the number of lines and say, all right, I have 500 words. Is this too much? Is this not enough? But as a rule of thumb, I would say that it should be at least 600, and no more than and less than 1,000. And I don't think they will have time to write over 1,000 words, right? That would be probably too much. Less than 600 probably means that there is probably some content missing. So again, I don't really feel comfortable giving you a specific figure, but around 800 should be good. But again, longer essays can be worse. Shorter essays can be better. It depends, because it also depends on whether your students are concise or whether they repeat themselves a lot. If they repeat themselves a lot, they will write a very long essay, but there will not be much content. And there are some students who will be very concise, very straight to the point, that will write much shorter essays, more efficient essays, and that will score a higher mark. So I don't know, but yeah, I realized myself when preparing some model answers that I try not to write more than 1,000 words, simply because I know it's just not possible to write more than that. But yeah, around 800 should be okay. But I don't think this is the priority, really, like the word count. They will feel what's right when practicing, and that's why you should practice with them as often as possible. So they will know, they will feel whether they have enough or not, and they will be able to manage their time better from a more intuitive perspective rather than counting the lines. Other questions? When it comes to market structures in chapter 7, I find that some MCQs often link this part with productive and allocative efficiency. Yes, of course. So would you revise this part again in chapter 7? Briefly, that's a good question. Let me have a look. So I don't exactly remember what I have in my PPT, but the first time we talk about efficiency in market structures, this is when we study perfect competition. I think I have one slide that just summarizes the main ideas. Yeah, you see? Okay, that's it. So I just have this slide that, okay, what is efficiency, productive, allocative? So then when we look at the diagrams, for example, in perfect competition, you know, these side-by-side diagrams, then they remember, oh, we are there at the bottom of the ATC curve. This is productive efficiency. Oh, we have the marginal cost, which is equal to supply is equal to demand, if you want. The marginal cost is equal to the average revenue, which is the market price, the marginal benefit of consumption. So yes, we have allocative efficiency. So I only give this brief slide. I lost it now. Yeah, this slide to summarize briefly what efficiency is about. Just one slide. Just what is needed to analyze efficiency within a particular market structure. That's it. Anything else? Any other questions? So remember that tomorrow there will be another workshop, AS workshop. We will talk about the basic economic problem, which is rather straightforward. We will also talk about economic systems. And we will talk about the key economic IDs. So actually quite a lot of concepts. We'll talk about economic models, normative and positive statements, economic models, ceteris paribus, the economic sectors, public, private, primary, secondary, tertiary. We'll talk about the division of labor and specialization. So there are quite a few important things if you want to get up on the right foot with your AS students. I strongly recommend that you attend this workshop tomorrow. So I know some of you have already registered. There are 6 seats left, I think. So if you have not yet registered and if you are interested in this AS workshop, then make sure that you sign up as soon as possible so you don't miss it. Okay, so 2 other questions. How many lessons does it take to cover the whole efficiency chapter? So if you look at my lesson plan, I think I do it in 3 lessons. Now let's just go back to this. I think it should be enough. 3 lessons. And I take my time. I don't really rush. Lesson 1, okay, productive and allocative efficiency. Lesson 2, dynamic efficiency and Pareto optimality. And then lesson 3 is dedicated to reviewing. It's the beginning of the year, so, you know, don't start too fast. Just make sure that you can take everyone with you. You might have new students, you don't know them, take enough time to get to know them. Yeah, I usually take my time for economic efficiency. And plus, this is such an important topic in A2. This is one of the most important topic. It is very, very often tested in both MCQs and essay questions. Make sure that your students, they have a very thorough understanding of what this is about. So 3 lessons should be enough to cover most of it. Okay, another question about price equal to marginal cost. Since so many textbooks use it, how should we explain students more intuitively? You can just tell them that the price is the marginal, I much prefer the demand price equal to marginal cost. Yes, the problem is that some students, they might not know what the demand price is. You can just tell them, if you want to keep it simple, you can just say, all right, you can, if you want to use price equal to marginal cost, it's fine, no problem. But just remember that the price is just represents the marginal benefit of consumption, because consumers will increase consumption as long as the marginal benefit of consumption is greater than the price. Okay, and they will stop consuming. They will reach the equilibrium, if you want, once the marginal benefit is equal to the price that they have to pay for the good. Keep it simple. Do not confuse them, especially because for the examination, they don't need to know too much about it. I just find price equal to marginal cost very confusing and not intuitive at all. It makes much more sense to relate consumption and production. Okay, marginal benefit of consumption, marginal cost of production. Then just say the price measures the marginal benefit of consumption. Move on. Okay, don't confuse them. And then if you have some more eager students who want to go a bit beyond, if they really want to understand why is it so, then you can provide the explanations that I gave in class, or you can invite them to go through the PPTs that relate to this particular content. Yeah, the price with the demand price, yes, is the marginal benefit of consumption. So which means if you take any level of output, any quantity, you look at the demand price, so which is the price at which the quantity demanded is equal to this particular quantity. Well, then this particular price measures the marginal benefit of consumption at this level of output. Any other questions? Speaking of the essay writing workshop, like the face-to-face essay writing workshop, if you have not, there is a WeChat group. If you have not yet joined the WeChat group, which is dedicated to the organization of this face-to-face essay writing workshop, then just send me a message and I will share the QR code with you. So, so you can, have the information. Yeah, there's a lot of content today, right? I really hope that you, I guess most of you have not yet started the new school year. And I find it a bit difficult to start the A2 economics course with economic efficiency. So I hope that now you feel ready. You feel ready, you have a lot of resources. You will have the video recording as well. So if if you forgot anything, or if you don't feel confident about something, just watch the recording again. And of course, send me a message. If there is anything else that anything else I can help you with, just send me a message. And I will help you with any issue that you may have. Again, let me just conclude on this, because this is quite important for these workshops, these online workshops, to run smoothly. Please, when you sign up, when you register, when you send your payment, especially through WeChat, do not forget to send me your ID code. Do not forget to click on confirm at the bottom of the page. Otherwise, I have to go through the database and try to guess who paid for what workshops. It's really complicated. So please make my life easier. Try to log in to join the meetings at least 10 minutes in advance, so I have time to go through the how do we call that, the waiting room, to check whether you have indeed registered for the workshop. And last but not least, make sure that the name that you display on Zoom is the same as the one that I have on the website. Let me show you what I see so you will better understand. This, try to show you, sorry. Oops, if I spell it wrong. Let me try to show you so you better understand why I really need this. What I do, I click there, show the list. This is, well, that's tomorrow. I see this, okay? I see your username, I see your name, I see the status of your registration. So if you do not have this information on Zoom, how can I check whether you have indeed signed up? So please go to the profile section of the website. This is your username. This is your full name. When you join the Zoom meeting, use one or the other. This is going to be very useful for me. Yeah, that would be great. Thanks in advance. All right, let's stop here for tonight. I guess I will see some of you tomorrow for the AS workshop. For those not coming tomorrow, then next week, next Tuesday, we'll have our second A2 workshop. There are still some seats left, so if you have not yet registered, feel free to do it. We will talk about the cost-benefit analysis, and we will also talk about market failures, not the solutions, but the causes, the main causes of market failures. So we will review some of the AS content, and I think you should review some of the AS content with your students. And that's about it. This will be the end of the first unit, the basic economic ideas and resource allocation. And if we have some time left, we'll give you some ideas on how you can review this, this chapter with your students. All right, have a nice evening, everyone, and see you tomorrow or see you next week. Bye, everyone.